Hello everyone and welcome to my Fates Divided overview video for Total War 3 Kingdoms. Now, all of my content of late for Total War has been provided to me by Creative Assembly for review purposes. Just to get that out there, and now that it's out there, let's dive in. Fates Divided is one of the more significant DLCs released for 3 Kingdoms in my opinion, mainly because it represents one of the most pivotal moments in the Romance of the 3 Kingdoms narrative. By the year 200, Cao Cao has established himself as one of the most powerful warlords in northern China. He's defeated nearly everybody around him and now looks to secure the entire north and northeastern territory of the country. The only thing stopping him is the equally powerful and highly regarded Yuan Shao. The Battle of Gaundu defined this conflict historically and ended in a major victory for Cao Cao despite being vastly outnumbered. Cao Cao used his forces intelligently and whittled away the supplies of Yuan Shao, forcing his army to rout and eventually resulted in his death. With these vast lands secured, the stage would be set in the future for the true rise of the 3 Kingdoms period of Wei, Wu and Shu Han. Now, obviously, Total War is all about altering history and making your own path. This DLC has a very interesting map with numerous challenging and easy start points for players. The highlight options of Cao Cao and Yuan Shao represent two very different starts. Cao Cao has a large domain, but is surrounded by enemies who have formed a coalition against him. The bandits of Zhengjiang sit right in the middle of his territory, while the small but deadly force of Liu Bei lies to his southeast. To the south and southwest, the last remaining Yellow Turbans led by Gaundu aim to assault Cao Cao's lands, while the largest threat is just across the river in the form of Yuan Shao. Meanwhile, the Yuan Shao faction is considered relatively easy as a start with numerous allies to help with the initial attack on Cao Cao and a large war chest to draw upon for the eventual decisive battle. Yuan Shao doesn't have it all easy with his own bandit problems to deal with in the form of Jiang Yan and other minor nobles to the west, and of course, the long campaign against Cao Cao himself. The final major faction addition with Fates Divided is Liu Yan, who has a very different style of play compared to the two highlighted factions. Liu Yan sits comfortably in the lands of Shu with a single driving goal, and that is to ensure that his son, Liu Zhong, has a strong kingdom with which to rule. I'll explain a lot more of that shortly, but if we have a look at the new mechanics introduced over there with this here update. So the first major overhaul is Cao Cao's credibility mechanic, which previously worked as a simple means for the player to start things like proxy wars between AI factions. It was a small way of highlighting Cao Cao's ability to subtly manipulate other lords and nobles to his own ends. Now, however, we have schemes, which add a lot more flavour to the Wei faction. Schemes can allow you to manipulate the campaign in a number of different ways, from improving relations with other factions, disrupting a target's economy, boosting stats in battle, or even being able to unlock tech tree options right off the bat. Schemes use what's called pawns to enact, and you can enact as many schemes as you have spy slots available and the credibility to afford them, so it's worth unlocking as many new spy slots as you can. His credibility resource can now also be spent on any diplomatic deal, and the best part is that this new system and new mechanic is with Cao Cao right from the very start. Yuan Shao previously felt kind of shallow and lacking despite being a rather major figure in the early events of the 3 Kingdoms. With this DLC, he receives a major overhaul, featuring unique generals and a new captain armory mechanic. To represent the vast army of Yuan Shao, his forces can be led by captains instead of lords or nobles. These captains can then be customized as you play with the use of Yuan Shao's lineage resource that allows him to improve their combat ability. Completing certain milestones during the campaign for your captains can now improve them further, and gives you some extra side missions to achieve as you conquer China in the Yuan name. You can also rename your captain generals as well, and there are a number of buffs that you can unlock for them. Liu Yan, however, has a strong focus on achieving goals, his aspirations, before a certain date. You have 190 to 194, and so on and so forth, right up until you reach the very late period. If you can complete as many of these goals as you can quickly between those first 4 years of 190 to 194, you get the highest buffs possible. However, the longer it takes you to complete those goals, or basically handing over the reins of power to your son Liu Zhang, means larger debuffs for him. It's representing the idea that you couldn't quite achieve all of your goals in time, or you were just not that good. However, the points that you get can then be used later on by cashing them in as a kind of currency, which will give certain benefits huge cash injections, being able to rapidly build structures within your kingdom, and being able to recruit higher ranked units. It's an interesting mechanic, and also has the ability for you to take certain debuffs in a way, trade-offs as they're called, for Liu Yan, allowing you to perhaps increase the cost of your general salary, but they work harder for you in the long term, thus granting you more points toward your aspirations. Another couple of major additions or changes include the new Imperial Intrigue mechanic. Starting in the year 197, every Imperial faction will have a standing with the young Emperor. This standing can fluctuate based on the completion of tasks handed out at random. Completing these can increase your standing and possibly lead to the Emperor aiding you with, say, money, food, or other rewards. Poor standing, however, can lead to sanctions against you, or even being declared an enemy of the Han. If you have high enough standing, you can use this to force peace between you and a single enemy, or you can call upon all of the loyal Han factions to target a specific general or noble, for the good of the Han, of course. The other major rework I am actually really happy about here is faction councils. Previously, these were just a simple case of clicking it and being assigned a bunch of random missions to accomplish, and they weren't really that interesting. But now, you can open a full council screen, and every councillor has 2 suggestions that you can trigger based on their personality. And these can be things where they can cause pirate raids into certain territories targeting specific enemies or neutral factions along your borders. Others can be things that will increase the peasants' pay in taxes towards you, or they may be things that will increase your loyalty amongst generals, or possibly improving the overall faction's economy. It's a really nice change up as well, and actually encourages you to put those generals in those positions within your faction, because they can trigger some pretty nice buffs. And we'll jump over to some other footage, but I want to cover the new characters that have been added, since the new and many personalities of the Three Kingdoms are core to the experience. So kicking off, we're going to have a look at the Yuan clan side of things. So first off, we've got 5 new generals, which are represented in Yuan Shao's forces, or Yuan Shao's forces, sorry. We've got Wen Chou here first. He is one of the more badass warriors of the Yuan clan. Famously, I believe he was killed by Gaundu. And prior to that, though, he was considered one of the stronger warriors in the sort of northern kingdoms at the time. His unique ability is, I believe it's the Roar of the Sharji, or Sharjur, something like that, which literally scares the crap out of enemies around him. But the Roar is so powerful, it will kill nearby enemies in romance mode. Basically, the ability to throw him into a unit and just cause absolute terror. Yan Liang is a cavalry commander, also one of Yuan Shao's more powerful and trusted warriors. He has the awesomely named ability, Mighty Thrust. Mighty Thrust allows him to literally charge through multiple units at once when it's activated. Just gives him a huge charge bonus buff, damage bonus when he charges. He's pretty good looking. I think the character model for this is great, but for all of them really. We have one that's probably quite popular with anyone who played Dynasty Warriors. We've got Zhong He. Now, Zhong He sadly doesn't have his claw weapons, or his absolutely fabulous personality, but Zhong He here still looks pretty damn cool. He has an interesting ability that, I'll bring it up quick, you'll be able to see it on him, Geographic Mastery. He gets an extra 100% bonus for spotting the forest. He has 50% charge resistance and 10% speed, and ignores ground type and forest penalties. Essentially, he can charge across the field without being slowed down. It's very useful for him to also be able to scout ahead and find enemy units that are hiding in the forests, making it easier for your siege weaponry and archers to get the drop on them. Historically, Zhong He did serve with Yuan Shao, but after a few falling out with his commander, he would defect and join Cao Cao's forces. Over here we also have his Yuan Shao's 2 sons. We have Yuan Shang on the left and Yuan Tan on the right. Yuan Shang is the youngest son of Yuan Shao, and as such he was made heir to the Yuan clan. Whereas Yuan Tan was the eldest son and resented his younger brother for being made heir. The two of them didn't get along particularly well, but Yuan Tan did end up becoming a vassal domain ruler under his father. And both of these, in fact all of these, are available on earlier start dates. Wen Chou and Yan Liang will always be with Yuan Shao at the start, as will his 2 sons, whereas Zhang He will initially serve with, I believe it's Han Fu, before moving over to Yuan Shao, depending on the start date you pick. Now, the Yuan siblings have a unique ability, which is referred to as the Familial Conflict passive buff. As long as there's another member of the Yuan clan on the field, they will push each other to greater limits, their rivalry basically. Increasing their base damage, base armor piercing, charge bonus, melee attack, and overall morale. It's a rather effective little buff. Now if we head over to Liu Yan's faction, which obviously isn't particularly large at the moment, but it's nice to see a couple of new units added. We've got Liu Yan himself, who looks rather drunk and or haunted. Not quite sure why his eyes seem to move independently, like he's some kind of chameleon, but there you go. Outside of it being rather terrifying, he is the patriarch of the Yan, or the Liu family, over in the Shu territory, and he has a rather tough hill to climb. Obviously, I talked about that earlier. And then we have Fa Zhang, or Fa Zheng, I'm not quite sure. I think it's Fa Zhang. He has an interesting ability as a strategist. It's called Mock. I don't think it'll show on here, unfortunately. No, it just says Wisdom of the River. But his active ability is Mock, which, when it's used on an enemy hero, will actually cause them a small amount of armor-piercing damage and a very big morale debuff. Hilarious stuff. The idea that his wit is so sharp, it will cut you. But that's the new additions there. Historically, Fa Zhang would end up switching sides during the invasion of Shu territory and would join Liu Bei. He was also quite well respected by Zhuge Liang, which at the time was a high honour. Over on Cao Cao side of things, we have Eugene. He's a defensive-focused general. His famous ability to hold the line against overwhelming numbers, particularly in the campaign against Yuan Shao, earned him his nicknames and his titles. He, in this game, is represented by having a ability that, while you're on the defensive, he will actually buff all of your units. It's also if you're outnumbered and in a defensive battle, he gives you an overall passive buff to defense abilities, which makes him really useful in those scenarios where you may need to have a turn or two where you can just whittle the enemy numbers down. You need someone to hold out as long as possible. Eugene's going to be your choice. And they've also got one of the most awesome looking new models in the game, Cao Ren. One of Cao Cao's most loyal generals. He's actually Cao Cao's cousin. He was well liked all round, and in this game is represented by having a active ability where he can heal everyone around him for a small amount, including heroes. He also increases their morale at, used at the right moment, keep your forces in the fight. Cao Ren looks really cool in this. Love the patterning and design of his armor. The face is pretty close to the artwork, actually. Sometimes you'll notice that with some of the characters, CG models will not look anything like the artwork, but this one, Cao Ren, really close, and I'm impressed by that. Now, we also have Lady Jen and Cao Pi. Now, they don't have any particular special abilities, though. Cao Pi is really welcome here. I'm glad that he finally got added to the game with a unique model rather than just being a generic. Cao Pi is the son of Cao Cao, ends up being the actual founder of the Kingdom of Wei, kicking off the entire Three Kingdoms period proper. He will appear as a child for most of the early campaign starts until around about 203, where he will come of age. And if you want, you can make him the successor, or until Cao Cao dies of old age, whether you've got the character aging on or not. I tend to play it without the aging on, because frankly, it's just more fun to have your character survive a bit longer. Lady Jen is Cao Pi's wife, although originally she was actually the wife of one of Yuan Shao's other children, one of his younger children, Yuan Shi. But unfortunately, after the whole destruction of the Yuan clan, she was captured and ended up marrying Cao Pi. As you can see, character model's pretty damn good, very detailed. You can see a lot of the detail on the clothing there and such. And yeah, it's nice to see more of these characters becoming more unique. And that's the new, I believe it was 10? I think it's 10 or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 new characters that have been added with this DLC with Fates Divided. And that's it for the new content of Fates Divided. Probably one of the largest updates to Three Kingdoms to date. A lot of these new characters work in earlier start dates along with the faction reworks for Cao Cao and Yuan Shao. It really makes for some refreshing gameplay, along with a pretty good new map start. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you have any questions, just ask below in the comments, and I hope you all have a good week. Thank you. Bye.